Welcome back to the channel, Transformers fans. Finally, another APC Toys release. And I'm super hyped for this one, as this is Soundwave from the Transformers Prime cartoon. Their name for him is, of course, Demonic Whisper Destruction. This is the second time they've released the Soundwave mold, which they've upscaled and modified slightly from the Robots in Disguise release for Transformers Prime. And so today I'm going to take a look at him. I got him over from Shozi's store. So definitely be sure to check out the links in the description below to get yours. And yeah, so I'm super hyped to get this guy, for this guy to arrive. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm a huge Transformers Prime fan. And this guy is definitely one of my favorite characters. He was always so evil and demeaning. And then he also turned into a pretty neat alt mode. I think the coolest alt mode for Soundwave, other than his original G1 alt mode, I think his most scalable alt mode, that actually fits in with all the other Transformers as being a drone. I always thought that design was really, really neat. So let's get straight into the review. And as always, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Really helps out. Hit that notification bell so you can stay tuned on all of my videos. And I try and get out all these third-party releases as fast as I can when I get them. So I literally got this guy today. So I'm just getting this review out now whenever it is actually uploaded. So here is the packaging. Again, very simple from APC Toys. Take a look, see cool artwork of Demonic Whisperer on the front there with his tentacle things. Very nice. Warren, pay attention to little parts. He does have little parts. We'll get into that. So that's the packaging. And then real quick, we'll just do a quick look at the instructions. So just for reference, this is obviously the first release. They didn't change the instructions at all. It's like Evil Voice, which is his first name when he came out, instead of Demonic Whisperer, I think. But these instructions are actually I think these are a direct copy of the Robots in Disguise release of Soundwave. So they actually have the transformation for the leg here doesn't actually work the same way. So we'll get into that a little bit, but otherwise it is the same, just upscaled from that. It does have both conversion steps from robot as he comes packaged to drone and drone to robot. So here is Soundwave or Demonic Whisperer. Demonic Whisperer or Evil Voice, whatever, numerous names he's been given. But I love this guy. He turned out fantastic. Just look at that face sculpt. There is no face. It's a great part of Soundwave. Now it doesn't really appear on camera here. You can kind of see it there. There's a little crack that actually goes through his visor there. Like that's been painted in or sculpted in. And I think that's, when Wheeljack kicks him in the face in that one episode, then he gets the crack across his screen. I thought that was also a really cool look for him. Gave him a little bit more battle damage. Kind of like what we see on Megatron and all of the robots in that show. I thought the animation was always amazing in that show, especially considering when it was released around the 2007, 2009 time frame. So definitely looking really nice. There's purple highlights used throughout. Very nice matte finish on him, like we see in the cartoon. He's not shiny like Megatron. Lots of that purple paint picked out throughout. And I mean, this paint is so cleanly applied. I mean, look at that. It's fantastic. Of course, feet are picked out in a nice gunmetal color, as are the kneecaps there. And the hands are molded. The hands are actually painted black too. Oh, there's a lot of paint on this guy. The blue is just mold color, but I think they got the plastic color spot on. And that gunmetal color is definitely really nice. This guy looks straight out of the cartoon for sure. And he certainly has the articulation to compensate. Whoops. So we may as well get into these accessories. So this is where that warning of small parts comes into play. So these are his claw pieces. So when you get them in the packaging, of course, this is all separate. Let's see if I can pull this off again. So you get, two of these, right? And then you get two of these base pieces, and then I can't pull these out again, but these little tentacle pieces, if you can see in there, there's a little line through them. They're actually two separate parts. They're each a half circle with one has two tentacle things on it, and the other one has three. And so you do have to insert those, but if you just have a little bit of fingernails or some tweezers or something, you get them in there very easily. Just give them a good squeeze. And they are of a flexible plastic, so that's pretty nice. And this has been painted in a gunmetal color. I believe it's normally molded in a blue plastic. And then these wires are pretty nice. They're like kind of like a twisty tie or you know, those like fluffy, bendy things. I'm forgetting the name, of course, on camera, but like a twisty tie kind of like thing. And they bend, and they definitely have a pretty thick solid core wire inside of them so that they bend up very nicely, and it's just a rubbery material on the outside. So you get them in some pretty neat poses. And these two ports on the end, I believe, are both 5mm ports. And so they can plug into, you can plug the claw into either end. And then you have this back piece, which has a little tab on it. It actually goes this way. So you have a little port there, a little peg, and it goes into that screw port on his back. Just plugs in right there, like that. And it still looks pretty good, and it doesn't actually impede any articulation, which is pretty nice to see. He still has the waist articulation even with that plugged on. And his leg articulation is a little bit limited, just being the nature of the mold, but it doesn't hinder that either. You can just plug that in and you can maneuver these however you like. So I think this is definitely an awesome feature, and I think something Hasbro probably would never release on a Soundwave. Of course, now that I say that, they probably will. But because this was such a key part of, you know, his ability to hack all the different systems in the show and be ahead of the Autobots and also take a few out. So that's definitely a fun accessory. Then his other accessory, of course, and my favorite one, is a laser beak. And I loved how they integrated this design in the show. So he's just on the chest there, just pulls out from his chest, and so you can see underneath. That's just kind of how he integrates. Soundwave still looks pretty good, I would say, with that laser beak on his chest. Still pretty reminiscent of that cartoon look there. And so here we have laser beak. And so to transform laser beak, very simple. You just want to pull these things, the little wings, forward, and then bend them however you so please. And now we have a laser beak flying around, ready to gun down Agent Fowler or whatever. And it's definitely a nice size too. He's definitely like what we see in the cartoon, you know, he could be pretty large. So definitely a nice accessory. Again, molded in that blue plastic, nice metallic purpley highlights. Unfortunately, no kind of like red paint on the front. That would have been nice to see where Laserbeak's eyes are, but definitely not a big deal. And the nice pin joints everywhere and solid plastic. So that's Laserbeak. You can go ahead and just put him back on. He does stay on very nicely. And you can keep him on for transformation and everything. So again, let's just plug him in. We have a Laserbeak on Soundwave. So now in terms of articulation, Soundwave is if you have the Robots in Disguise release or the Beast Wars release, you know exactly what to expect with this guy, or Beast Hunters, sorry, you know exactly what to expect with this guy. So this guy, so he does have a ball joint here, double ball joint on the head. There's like there's a single ball joint, and then there's just like a up and down motion for transformation there. So you can get his head moving in lots of different poses there. So you can have it sitting a little higher up if you want to, or pretty down low in front of Laserbeak. It was always kind of like about there in the show. And he can look side to side ever so slightly, but certainly enough. Soundwave doesn't really need a look, because he's got eyes and ears everywhere. And then at the shoulders, you do get a full rotation here, full 360. It does kind of hit his wings on the back, which are, I think they're actually, on this one, I think they've been extended in scale from that of the original release, and they're not that rubbery plastic, so that's nice to see. But anyways, back to articulation. So that does do the majority of the range that you'll actually need. You don't need Soundwave to do a full 360 all the time with his arm. But then you do get this joint here. It only moves kind of forwards, and that's just for transformation, but still kind of useful if you want to get him into some poses. Then you do get a ball joint up here, and he kind of has like two elbow joints, because then he also has this one down here as well, which is just a swivel. But you can use that ball joint to a number of degrees, and there's also a swivel up here. So you got lots of options for how to move his arm, which is definitely good, as we see, you know, his arms are pretty dynamic in the show, being full wings like that. He doesn't really have like dedicated elbows, I guess. And then this joint here also hinges in and out, and that's the kind of only wrist or hand articulation that you get on this guy, due to the nature of his design and the way he transforms. But that's still definitely sufficient given all the range you get up here, I would say. And then just the hands, they do have a 5mm port in them, which is retained from the original, but these are solid plastic. They're still slightly flexible, but they're not that rubbery plastic that was used on the original toys. And then at the waist, he does, in fact, have an ab crunch, which is pretty awesome. I believe that was true. I know on the Beast Wars release that was true, so I'm sure it's true on the original Robots in Disguise version. So he has that little bit of an ab crunch there, which is mainly just due to transformation, as this straightens out in jet mode, and then in robot mode, you're supposed to collapse it a little bit. But you can use that, of course. And then he does have full 360 waist rotation. Again, when you put this on, it prevents the full 360 range, but you can still use the majority of that rotation. Then at the hips, we do have ball joints, so you can kick forward to a great degree. I do have his knee bend here. So you can kick forward very nicely and backwards to about there. And then he does have upper leg swivel below that ball joint. And then there is also, I think, looks like there's a joint here. It's kind of interesting. Actually, I didn't really notice that before, but there is like a slight angle joint built in here. I'm not sure if that was on the original toy. I don't remember seeing that, but it doesn't really do much. Maybe to just help with some more dynamic poses, I guess. And then you do get a knee joint here. Now, the only trick with using the knee is this little tab here, due to transformation, gets caught in that little area. So you just want to lift it over a little bit, and now you have the full range of motion of the knee, which is actually double jointed, but you still only get about 90, maybe not quite 90. It's too bad this knee guard doesn't move with it, like on some of the Gundam models or something, but still pretty good for Soundwave. We don't ever see Soundwave running. He has no need to ever run. And so that's your knee articulation. And this kneecap does move on its own a little bit due to the nature of all the joints there. And then at the feet, we don't get any ankle rock or anything due to the age of this figure, although some of those Transformers Prime figures did have a crazy amount of feet articulation. So all you really get here is you can maneuver these pieces around as like a toe. So this all rocks back and forth. And then here's the difference I was showing from the instructions. So on the original toy, this whole front section folded up on the back of his leg. But on this one, as you can see, it only goes to there. That's as high up as you can get it. And so I just kind of prefer to leave it as like a extra piece of the heel spur, which definitely makes him more stable for posing. And the reason for that is just because they enlarged the section and redid it a little bit, so his alt mode looks a lot better, which it definitely does. So definitely fairly articulated here from Soundwave. All those, Transformers Prime releases were fantastic when they were released and definitely still hold up today. So for some size comparisons, let's set them back here as we have some big figures to put next to him. So we have, of course, I've already reviewed this figure on the channel. This is APC Toys Dark Master, or Transformers Prime Megatron. So there you can just see how they stack up next to each other. And here we have Arachnid, also APC Toys Night Countess. Get her to stand up. I think thus far this is probably the weakest release from APC Toys, but still pretty nice. And then we have Viacon there. And of course, one more Decepticon to get in there, being Knockout. And so all of these are all APC toys. This is a first edition, or Robots in Disguise Knockout. But I've reviewed all of these APC Toys releases, so definitely be sure to check out those videos as well. They're all fantastic figures, and if you're a Transformers Prime fan, they're certainly a must to have. And so I think overall these characters scale very well with one another. Soundwave is still a little bit on the small side. I think he should be maybe a little bit, like just a few inches taller. And then Arachnid is on the big side. But that kind of works with the size of RC in the line, as those two scale well with each other. But Arachnid's definitely out of proportion here with the rest of the characters. I think Knockout and the Viacon are definitely the right size. And if you take Arachnid out of the mix here, I think that actually does look very good. Knockout being on the smaller side in comparison since he's a car, and then these guys being a little bit bigger. And the Viacon's always had a decent stature to them. So there is for some comparisons. There you go, just for direct size. The Viacons overall and Knockout are about the same size minus the big shoulder pieces. And then, of course, with Dark Master or Megatron, and this is a custom mold that APC Toys made, this guy. There's your scaling there. So, Megatron definitely towers over all the Decepticons as he should. So now on to transformation. So for this guy, we already went through all the accessories that you get. There is no way really to integrate these into the jet mode. I guess you could leave them on when you're transforming him, but he never used his arms in jet mode, so these you just kind of have to leave to the side, but these being more like collector's items, it's not a big deal in my opinion in terms of weapon storage. So, but you can leave Laserbeak on, which is awesome. So to start off, I like to put his head into the cavity. So you just want to pull this back. And if you already have the Robots in Disguise or Beast Hunters versions, you know exactly what to expect. For this transformation, it is the same, minus like a few part differences just in size, but otherwise like the tapping's all the same. And so you want to pull this jet piece out and tuck the head in. Now in the original Robots in Disguise and Beast Hunters versions, I believe this was spring-loaded. But on this version it is not, which I personally kind of prefer. Doesn't really matter that much. Although it is kind of nice to have that spring-loaded when you're transforming him into robot mode, so you don't have to pry his face out, but nonetheless, it still works. Then I like to come to the legs, as they are very simple. This guy's very easy to transform. So to start out, you want to just kind of straighten all this out and line everything up here. So you can see now that this part sits flush. Just do that on both sides. Then come down to the feet here and just rotate them up. And you want to pull out the landing gear. It's only on one side here. It's just easier to do now rather than later. And then bring down these pieces. And then you want to straighten this piece out and they'll just tab together there like that. And it should be very smooth on the other side, like as a drone should. And that just collapses like that. Then there are lots of tabs and slots here that do line up. So you can see there's a slot there, or a tab there that goes into a slot there, a peg there that goes into a hole up there, and then there's another two up here. One here, one there, one here, and a slot there. So just line it all up, goes together pretty easily. Recommend actually starting at the nose, as those tabs are the strongest. So it should just snap in very nicely. So with all these APC Toys releases, and get that back peg lined up in the middle section, and it should just be nice and flush like that. Gets a very nice dynamic curve through there. And then you do want to straighten out that torso joint there, right? So instead of having his ab crunched, you want it to be straight. And now we'll come to the wings. And to start out with the wings, you just want to collapse these joints in, similar to the Viacons, but not as complex. So just straighten out the wing. And then for this end piece, you actually do want to fold it under, and that 5mm port in the hand does go into a port underneath the wing, like that. And then you just want to disengage that side piece there, rotate the shoulder over, and lay it flat against that piece. And then it is like a little hook tab that goes into a slot there on the top of the leg. And so it's just a matter of maneuvering them. It's actually this slot that it goes into. And just line it up, tabs in very securely, and of course repeat the same thing on the other side. So just line up that little peg into the little slot there, then collapse the arm, disengage the shoulder, rotate around, and just line up into that slot and compress till everything seats nice and flush. And here is Demonic Whisperer, APC Toys Demonic Whisperer, aka Transformers Prime Soundwave, in his drone alt mode. And I think this definitely looks awesome. I was always a huge fan of Soundwave's alt mode in Transformers Prime, that being like a drone inspired by like the Raptor drones or the Global Hawk kind of thing, or Predator drone, any of those. It has aspects of all of them, along with a little bit of maybe Cybertronian character. But it always looked awesome. And I think this mold definitely does it justice. This is a pretty old mold now. I think it was from like 2007. So, but it still holds up today. Still looks great. And APC Toys has done a fantastic job reusing it, bringing these Transformers Prime characters back. Now there is a good bit of robot mode kind of hanging out here, but it still looks pretty good. I think for what it is, it definitely looks good. And you know, this guy coming in at I think around like $33 is definitely, you know, by today's standard, he would definitely be a Voyager, and he definitely wouldn't come with all of this. So definitely a nice price for him. Of course, he doesn't have any Decepticon stickers on him yet, but Jersey Store always packages those, so you can apply them yourself. And then that landing gear, and so the back landing gear are kind of molded in, and there aren't really any wheels. That just kind of sits on these little tabs there, and it rocks a little bit because Laserbeak's on. If you take Laserbeak off, it does actually sit on these little tabs back here, but otherwise, you know, it just rocks a little bit. And you can always, of course, just collapse landing gear for a very smooth in-flight appearance. And you can attach Laserbeak if you want to, of course. And then for some alt mode size comparisons, just have two quick ones. That being first edition Starscream, who's deluxe class in size. And the original Soundwave was also deluxe class, but they've since scaled him up a little bit, I think. There's actually a chance this is about the same size. I could be mistaken, as I did already sell my Beast Hunters version, as I knew this was coming. But there is that for scale. So yeah, maybe they are both about, he is about a deluxe class, a little big on the deluxe class. But this Starscream does compact a lot. So there is that size. And I think that is pretty accurate to what we see in the show. It's pretty close. I am hoping APC Toys does come out with an upscale of Starscream. That would be awesome. The first edition mold or the Robots in Disguise mold, either one. And then here he is with APC Toys Viacon, just for that scale. So he is definitely, if he were a deluxe by today's standard, he'd be on the very large end. So definitely scale nicely with one another. You can have Soundwave and Starscream doing whatever it is Starscream wants to do, and Soundwave spying on him, as Soundwave is the eyes and the ears of the Decepticons. So that about wraps up my review of APC Toys Evil Voice or Demonic Whisperer. This release is Demonic Whisperer specifically. So I definitely love this guy. I think APC Toys has done a fantastic job bringing back this mold. I'm really loving what they're doing with Transformers Prime. And if you're a Transformers Prime fan, if you didn't pick up the first release, Evil Voice, this one is definitely worth picking up. So definitely click that link in the description and get yours now. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for my next video, and I'll see you then.